Once again, we're back for a Small Business Solution Series. Today, we've got a presentation from a guest, and I'll call you friend, Marty. Marty Golden, who is District Director for the Portland office of the U.S. Small Business Administration. Did I get all the words correct and in the right order?
Perfect, thank you.
Awesome. Any questions that anybody has at any time? I believe Marty said he was comfortable raising hands or interrupting at any point, but also you can direct them to the chat, and I'll interject at a comfortable pause. So in either place, chat or raise your hand, feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like at any point. Our sponsor for today is Yellow Dog Consulting, run by one Elizabeth Case, who is on at the moment. Would you like to say some words about Yellow Dog and sponsoring the Small Business Solution Series?
I would love to. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Case. I own Yellow Dog Consulting. We do email marketing consulting for small business owners. I am a certified MailChimp partner and email expert or something like that. There's a few certifications I have. So I am the person you call when you are swearing at MailChimp and frustrated and know your newsletter should get out, but it's just not happening and you want to throw your computer out the window. I am your person to make that not be the case anymore. So if ever you are frustrated, I'm the person to call. You can always find me on yellowdogconsulting.com. I'm also active on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I am so happy to be sponsoring the Small Business Solution Series. I've been on this council for a few years now and love the work that we get to do and bring in awesome people like Marty to help us out. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. As a friend and somebody who has watched Elizabeth work, I can tell you she's sharp. And also, I've worked a lot with the SBA myself, and our shop, 5-Star Guitars, with the SBA and Marty. So I know he's got a bunch of great info for us. There's a lot of resources out there, and lots of things that we can use, tools and resources and people that are available to help. So what do you have for us today, Marty?
Oh, thank you very much. And Jeremy's being a little modest. He's not pointing out that he was a small business person of the year, 5-Star Guitars. So I think that is the only one. I got that right? The entire country, weren't you?
Yeah, it was we won it in 2016 for Oregon. So we didn't take home the national trophy or national title, but we did get to go to DC to
we had one national winner, which is the only one we've ever had. I thought it was you, but you still
we do I do believe we were the only music store that has won a state level for anything, but yeah, so yeah, our ties run deep. So happy to be on the call with you, and excited to hear what you've got for us.
Thanks. So as was said, my name is Marty Golden. I'm the District Director of the Portland District Office of the U.S. Small Business Administration. I'm going to go over a bit of a presentation later. We're really just starting to do these again. To be honest, we've spent the last 2 years pretty much buried under our pandemic programs. And so, we're still spending good 40% of our time answering questions for people who are still kind of hanging out there on the economic injury disaster loans. But we have had the PPP program, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, economic injury disaster loan, along with 3 variants of the advances under that. Shuttered venue operators grant, that was about $18 billion of money that went out to venues and venue related businesses. We had a restaurant revitalization fund, which was a grant, and that went out to about 28 billion people. That was oversubscribed multiple times, and was gone in 2 or 3 weeks. But a lot of the restaurants in Oregon got some of that money, and we've just been kind of going crazy, doing whatever we can to help Oregon small businesses try to survive what has obviously been, for most, the most brutal period of business that anybody can remember. I think the one thing to say about that, though, is that if you're a business that has survived for the last 2 years, you really should pat yourself on the back, because you've gone through, as I said, the most economic disruption anybody's ever seen in recent memory. And you've made it through. And at this point, I think that you should look at yourself as being completely battle tested. And, I've talked to some small businesses, and my feeling is, what can you not handle at this point? You've really been through the worst of it. You've gotten 10 years worth of business education in a year, I think. And just I'm so proud. I have so much respect for our small businesses. I think they deserve all the benefits they get because of the risk they take and what they're contributing to the economy. And let's all remember that the people who are providing jobs, the government doesn't really provide jobs. We're supporting the part of the economy that is employing almost, well over half of the private sector workforce is supported by small businesses. So for anybody who's ever been out of work, and I've been in that position, that having a job is more important than almost anything else. So thanks to all the small businesses, and really congratulations on getting to this point. It's an amazing accomplishment. So as I was starting to say, we're wrapping up the disaster loan programs. You're going to see some numbers later, but we put out through with our bank partners and sometimes directly. And again, this is money that you guys are paying as taxpayers, but over $1 trillion was put out by the SBA in the last almost 2 years. So that is probably more than we've put out in our entire existence since 1953. The scale of the loans that went out in the last 2 years was really, really unprecedented. So having said
Tony,
that,
can I ask a question?
sure.
I'm just curious, what do you, in terms of the sort of vibe of DC? I know that restaurants are still sort of lobbying for additional assistance. Do you see any additional assistance coming, or that's kind of at the end of the rainbow for that?
Yeah, I don't have any special insight into what DC is doing. I'm not even sure what was in the Build Back Better bill, which appears to be dead. So honestly, I thought I would have bet a lot of money that they would have immediately given more money to the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, specifically because of the way it was rolled out and the way that the courts ruled that the way the SBA, or Congress, I guess, wrote the legislation was unconstitutional. So I figured there was going to be a lot of kind of complaining, and that they would give more money to the program. Clearly, there was something like $90 to $100 billion of they thought of need for that, and we only had $28 billion. So to my surprise, more money didn't come, and honestly, I'm not seeing anything coming down the pipeline. The stance of the administration right now, or the administrator, I should say, in the SBA, is we need to get back to doing the things that we were doing before the pandemic, and and continue to kind of help people who are still in the system, but for the most part, let's get back to business. And so, this is really kind of, in a way, that, right? We're getting back to business, and want to make sure people about it know our regular programs. And so that's what's happening right now. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see. Oh, the host is disabled participant screen share. Are we going to be able to, am I going to be able to share this? I can't hear you.
You should be good now.
Okay. Host disabled participant. Let's try it again. Okay. Here we go. I'm not super good at this, but let's see if this is going to work. Can you all see the front slide? Okay.
Yes, SBA logo. It looks like your whole screen is, you can see your list of slides too.
Oh, really? Okay, well.
Oh, there we go. Getting there. Presentation mode.
What's that? Yeah, I put it in that,
All right.
but like I said, I'll be lucky if I'm not showing you my shopping list or something. Okay, so I want to apologize first. We have a very slick multimedia presentation that was put together just before the pandemic. Unfortunately, it's very large and it's crashing my computer and I can't bring it up. So what I did is I pulled up an old presentation and started to update it, but I just ran out of time. So some of these numbers are going to be kind of dated. So I've got it looks like I'm on a timer of some kind. What's that? Or a minute and 8 seconds in.
It's just your slideshow,
Okay.
PowerPoint, whatever is timing you. It tells you you've had it open for 1 minute and 17 seconds. So you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, that's me, Martin Golden. The SBA mission is really about, jobs. Why does the government have this program? It's because small businesses create jobs at the end of the day. So our mission is to start, grow, expand, and recover. And we've seen 2 years of recover. So that's gotten a lot more press than ever before. But even so, we're still spending a lot of time in various natural disasters. We have a disaster loan center open that's going to be open next month in Wahkiakum County, which is part of the Portland district, to help people put in applications for a wind disaster. So we have many disasters which go on aside from the pandemic program. Okay, so we're basically 68 district offices throughout the country. One in all 50 states, and then in bigger states, there's more than one. So I think California's got 6, and there's a number of states which have 2 districts, and that's why there's 68. So the Portland district covers basically all the counties, 30 of the 36 counties in Oregon, as well as, and so the eastern counties are covered by the Boise district office, and then we cover 4 counties in Southwest Washington, which is essentially the Vancouver MSA. Who are small businesses? The 500 is really kind of it's an old statistic. It really depends on what kind of industry you're in. And sometimes there's revenue or net income cutoffs. And sometimes it's by employees. And if you're certain kinds of manufacturing companies, actually, it's a lot more than 500. But that's kind of a, sort of an average there. We have like 397,000 small businesses in Oregon. They represent almost all of the employers, and they employ about 55% of the workforce of Oregon. So again, small businesses equals jobs, which equals economic activity, which equals hopefully a good quality of life. So this is an old tagline, but I think it's still the best. So what do? We call it the 3 C's, and then 3 C's, E if you want to count exporting. So access to capital programs, access to federal contracting programs, and access to counseling and training, as well as access to programs which will assist exporters. And I should point out that the majority of exporters in the United States are small businesses with less than 20 employees. So it's not just General Electric and Boeing. Most of our exporters are small companies like the ones you all own. And you could be shipping stuff to overseas, and it makes you an exporter. Okay, so moving to the capital programs. All loans go through intermediaries with the exception of disaster loans, which come straight from the SBA. So our primary program is what we call the 7A loan guarantee program. The idea is so banks that agree to work with the SBA, and that's most of the banks really in Oregon, the banks, not necessarily the credit unions, have an agreement with us. And if they feel that the risk that your loan brings to the bank is a little bit more than they want to take on, they will use the SBA loan guarantee program to help them make that loan. So the idea there is that we will provide 75 to 85% guarantee, which means that if they lose money on the deal, we'll give them 75 to 85% of the money they lose back. So obviously that's going to incentivize them, a lot more to do a deal. And so the idea there is not to do deals no matter how they are. I mean, if you're not credit worthy, even the SBA guarantee is not going to get you there. But if you're in the ballpark, and we've worked with many, many, many small companies in Oregon, you may be able to get a loan by using the SBA loan guarantee program. So, the working capital program, you can use that for fixed asset purchases. The total loan can be up to $5 million. The term depends on, what their, what your purpose of the loan is for. One thing to keep in mind is the price you pay for that loan. The upfronts are not negotiable, and the loan guarantee fee there is probably pretty close, but it might be a little out of date. But the ongoing interest rate is something you negotiate with the bank. The SBA has max caps there, but you'll be nowhere near them. So this isn't like an SBA loan costs prime plus 275. It costs what the bank offers you, and that's why you should shop. So you go to different banks and make sure you're getting the best deal, and make sure you're also going to different places, because some places may understand what you do, what your business is, and be willing to take that risk. And other banks may not understand that business, or may have a policy that they're not doing. For instance, at Jeremy shops, there may be a bank that says we're not going to do music stores, and that's just the way it is. So bankers don't all do the same thing, and I used to be a banker, and it's very important to remember that they're all different. So because you're getting an answer one place doesn't mean you're going to get the same answer someplace else. Always remember that. Our second major loan program is the 504 loan guarantee program. That is for heavy fixed equipment and real estate. The best example I can use for that is, let's say a small manufacturer is leasing the building that they're manufacturing out of, and they decide that they want to buy the building. Well, you can use a 504 loan guarantee, 504 loan for that. And the way that's structured is that a bank will do the first 50%. The SBA will do the second 40% through a CDC, which is a certified development company. And you have to come up with 10% equity. And that's pretty low compared to what the market will ask. So it's a great way to finance the purchase of building or heavy equipment. You can get terms that are up to 30 years now. It used to be 25, but now it's 30. And we'll do a project size of 12.5 million total. You can see 40% would be the SBA's 5 million. So I think it's actually 12, but there's special circumstances where you can go up to 12.5. So if you want one of those, the way to go about that is there are local community development corporations that work on these deals. But you could also go to a bank and say, I'd like to look at a 504, and they can contact CDCs as well. You can kind of talk to either party first. Okay, our third program is the major program is called the Microloan Program. So what we do is we work with nonprofit financial intermediaries, and we give them a line of credit, which they in turn can use to lend money to small businesses, which wouldn't probably qualify for other financing with the SBA. So these are very small businesses. They can be $5,000 loans, $10,000, up to $50,000. I think one of the local ones does, $1,000 loans, $500 loans. And this is kind of an alternative to using a credit card. It's not as cheap as the other programs, but I think it, can tend to, again, it depends on what they're charging, but it can be, around 8% potentially. They also provide technical assistance along with that, and they're required to do that because lots of times the businesses that use these loans are less sophisticated and so more in need of business counseling. And so we have 3 good micro lenders here, with a 4th one that's just coming down. So many of you may have heard of MISO, Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon. OWAMI is another organization that does microloans, although they pretty much do receivables financing. So unless you've already got receivables, they probably won't work. But you should try them anyway. We have Mercy Corps Northwest, which is a micro lender, and Business Impact Northwest, which is out of Seattle, just got their powers to do loans in Oregon. So some of the counties in Oregon. So they're new, and they've got somebody down here. And so we really like to say we have 4 micro lenders. That's really good, actually. Most districts don't have this many micro lenders. Oregon has more than its share of micro lenders and micro loans, which I'm happy to say. Just to give you an idea who the top lenders are here by 21. Columbia State Bank and Umpqua are getting ready to merge, so that's going to be Umpqua pretty soon. But they're still going to have a very strong presence in SBA lending. So ReadyCap, Live Oak, and yeah, those 2 are kind of out of area people who come in and just do loans. The rest of them all are either located here. Well, they all have branches and operations here. So this is just to give you some idea. Even in the middle of the pandemic, we had the highest dollar amount of 7A loans that I think we've ever had in the Portland district. Not in terms of the number of loans, that's come down a little bit, but still, pretty significant. So people have a lot of interest in where the loans are going these days. I saw some interesting statistics on the number of, for instance, African-American small business in Oregon. Apparently it's around 6,400, 6,500 out of 397, which is about 1.6% of the small business population. And if you look at the 21 results, they are getting about 1.7 to 2.2% of the loans that were done in this district. We do have some difficulty with numbers sometimes because a good percent of our loans, whether they're microloans or 7A loans, are not, people don't have to disclose demography. So a lot of people don't. 20 to 40% of people, depending on the program, aren't saying what their demographic is. And so when we look at numbers, they're never precise because of the fact that we don't know, a good percentage of the people who are getting loans, what the demographics are. But in any case, we're trying our best to make sure that everybody has access to the capital programs. That's a big focus of the current administration. And so we're doing different things to try to increase the participation of underserved people into the business and business community. Anybody have any questions so far?
Marty, just a question about, since you're a former banker, so if a business is wanting to go into their bank and talk about some of these financial vehicles, what should they be prepared to have in hand and ready to present to the banker to make this most successful for them?
Well, that's a great question, and we have some great counselors who can help with that. But in general, you want to make sure you understand your business, that you have a plan. People like, to say, have a business plan, bring in a business plan. I don't know that you have to have that, but it helps. You have to have numbers that you're on top of. So know what your financials look like, have them in at least QuickBooks form. If you're a bigger business, you might want to have compiled or reviewed statements. Audited statements are probably too expensive for most businesses, but know what your numbers are. Know if you can service the amount of money that you're looking for. Know the amount of money that you're looking for. So if the banker says, well, how much are you looking for? It's not a great answer to say, I'm not sure. You might not be sure. You might need some help in trying to figure out what that need is, but at least know that they're going to be interested in that. and know what you can use to secure the loan. All loans at this level, I mean, I did big loans which were unsecured corporate stuff, but at this level, they're going to be secured loans, and you're going to need a personal guarantee almost all the time. And so the more it looks like that you know about your business and that what your plans are, the easier it's going to be for the banker to understand what you're looking for and what he could possibly do. These bankers have a pretty good idea of what their credit committees will allow. And so, that's what they're trying to figure out.
Marty, we had a couple of questions in the chat about what may be considered in terms of collateral or like included in a personal guarantee. Like, is it all material assets, or is it like, can IP count?
I don't think at this level, I don't think IP counts. There are IP lenders out there, but it's a very specialized type of lending. And you'd have to have defensible IP and something somebody thought was worth a lot of money. So there are those that do that kind of lending though, but they're not going to be your average bank. So in terms of the collateral though, they're looking for a method of repayment. So ideally you've got something you can give that is readily changeable into money. So if you've got old inventory or something that nobody's going to want to buy, probably that might not take it, not be enough. They might just take the business assets of your company. It really depends. I mean, they're looking for a way out in case the business doesn't work. The personal guarantees are sometimes important in terms of what you have. Like if you've got a house that's got a lot of equity, that might help get the deal done. But I know as a banker, a lot of times the personal guarantee is just used to make sure you can get the borrower's attention. Because if the borrower thinks that he can just walk away from the business and walk away from the loan, they might not be as motivated to try to work something out as somebody who thinks they've got personal assets to lose. So I know in my career, we took personal guarantees sometimes, but I never was part of a deal where we took somebody's house. But that's because the value of their house wasn't worth anything compared to the amount of money that was owed. And, I think the institution just felt like, what's the point? We don't need to, it's not going to matter. We're still going to lose a lot of money. But, if you've got a $50,000 loan and you've got $100,000 equity in your house, then they might foreclose on the house.
There's another question about like private stock and other things. I can tell you from having gone through this process myself, we've the personal guarantee asks you about just about anything that you have that, like, if you would report it on your taxes, you would consider it something to be included in the personal guarantee. We've had to fill out, how much money is in your bank account, how much your car is worth, how much, what do you have in your house in terms of jewelry and others, like what's your, all of your personal assets. So if it goes on if you're filing a tax return on it, it probably does count as something that could be considered collateralized. But I think, like Marty is saying, it's mostly to do with, can you contribute covering the, payback of it if it doesn't pan out? Can they get their money back? And it sometimes feels invasive, but I also understand why what they're looking for, what they want.
So, I mean, my personal experience, I've had a pretty varied career, and I've owned, I had a professional business, a lending company, and I also had a small business that was supposed to be just an investment. And all that was right before the Great Recession, and the gym that I owned went out of business, and I had to give him money. I had to pay him. The business didn't have it, and I just had to, suck it up and pay off the business loan with my personal assets.
So, Marty, I have a question. So I'm a patent paralegal, and I'm looking at the industry. Everything that exists, 98% of everything has a patent on it. I'm pretty sure you got chairs and things like that, light bulbs and stuff like that. There are patents on these things.
Right.
I'm wondering why the lending institutions would not focus on supporting patents when so much of what we use on a daily basis is patent backed.
So, and when you say supporting patents, what do you mean by that?
So, okay, the beginning of the process starts with bringing an idea forward, whether it's food, furniture, goods, starts with the bill of exchange, changes into a
Do you
promise.
mean lending on a patent idea?
Yeah, like computers, trucks, cars, all that stuff has patents backed on it. And it's just a little confusing to me to be a part of the industry and look at how patents are the last thing on the list to use as collateral.
Well,
I just don't get it.
Well, so if you use a patent to secure a loan and the loan doesn't work out, the bank has to do something with your patent. And so they've got to be able to sell it, right? And most banks would have no idea how to do that. So before you even get into it, that's important. They don't know what to do. They have no experience with that. And the reality is that somebody has to buy the patent. There has to be a patent valuation. And so it's a very, very specialized type of lending. And most patents are probably not easily convertible into cash. So, the folks that do this are people who are, like for instance, if you've got a lot of specialty pharmaceutical developers do this kind of thing. So, you've got an idea for a biotech drug, you go through phase 1, phase 2 testing, and now you need money, and somebody will come along and say, I have a specialty in this biotech, field. I think the idea these guys have is amazing. It's going to be worth $1 billion someday. And we're willing to take that risk. We're going to lend you some money because we think that this patent will have a market and we'll be able to realize value. And so they'll do that deal. But again, you have to have the expertise to value the patent and be able to sell it. And I think most patent ideas, if that's what you're talking about, a patent idea, don't work out. There's lots and lots of people who've got ideas that they want to patent and it doesn't work out. So the bank at the end of the day has got to, one, have the expertise to manage the collateral that you're giving them, and two, has to have value. The same way that if Jeremy, was using his guitars in his store to collateralize a loan, the average bank is going to be like, what am I going to do with all these guitars? I have no idea what he's going to say, hey, these guitars are worth a lot of money. You don't understand. I've got, some 50 Stratocasters and they're worth a lot of money and they're going to cover this loan, no problem. And so maybe they will, maybe they won't. But even if he's right and they're worth a lot of money, you've got to be talking to somebody on the other side who knows that he's right and is confident of that. So it's pretty complicated. Does that answer any of your question?
Well, yeah, actually, it sounds like a great opportunity to assist the SBA with assisting banks with understanding exactly how these things work. It's a specialized industry. Patents are, they come into the market to serve a specific purpose, but banks have enough funding to pay attorneys and other people who specialize in knowing the value of a particular patent. And so I guess what we're talking about is how we assist the financial institutions with understanding the value of any kind of a given product that's coming to the market. And I guess that's something that we would want to do with the SBA, since the SBA kind of backs a lot of small businesses. So it sounds like a great opportunity for a partnership for us, is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing to keep in mind is the SBA has some overriding policies, but we don't tell banks what to lend on or how to do it. It's completely their decision. They have to get an SBA guarantee, they have to meet certain guidelines, but they've all got their own credit policies. And, as a banker, what I'll say is, banks know what they're bankers. They know what they're doing. They know what their business model is. And, they have to make money and minimize risk. And, there's definitely holes in the market for sure. But for the most part, they have a pretty good idea of, what's going to work out for them and what probably won't. And that's why, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but that's why there's a million different kinds of financial institutions and funds that will fill holes in the capital structure, so that, when people won't do deals under 5 million, So then somebody else goes, well, hell, I'll do them. I'll do them. And then the next guy says, well, I can't do 3 million, but I'll do the ones under 3. So the hard part about being a business is finding somebody who likes the kind of deal that you have. That's the trick. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is unfortunately not updated. It is this used to be a really interesting slide, like in 16 and 17, because what you would see is, the loans before the Great Recession, and then what happened, the way they really dropped off and then started coming back up again. But we're still in the sort of thousand deal range today. We've kind of held stable there the last few years. Just to give you an idea, $471 million. It's more like about 700 million now. So even though we're not doing more deals, the deals that we're doing are bigger because they're higher dollar volume. Okay, our second C is how are we doing on time, by the way, Deanna? Am I moving too slow or?
I think you're on a steady pace. We're about 20 minutes out.
Okay, so the second C is contracting. We have, so the U.S. government has over $1 trillion of purchase of goods and services a year, and they're the biggest buyer of things in the world, basically. And so they don't buy everything the same, but if you have a business, and there are ways to figure this out, if you have a business that sells something the federal government might be interested in buying, they have, we have to do 23% of our federal spend a year has to go to small businesses. So contracting officers have goals for small businesses. They have goals for women. They have goals for minorities. They have goals for veterans. And those goals are getting higher as we speak. And so if you can get certified to sell into these, into the buying systems, you have a better chance of getting a deal than you would if you weren't certified. And then we also have what we call an 8A business development program, which is a 9-year program where you can get what they call 8A contracts, which is another area of contracts that the government is required to buy. And so you'll get access to a business opportunity specialist, and they can help you get prepared to bid on federal contracts. And so, it is a pain. It's harder to bid on federal contracts than it is on, normal private sector contracts. But the way to look at that is, because not everybody is willing to go through that pain, if you do, you're in a much smaller group of competitors. And what I've noticed is that once you get a contract or two and people learn to trust you, you'll get more and more contracts. So you see that, and this is a little bit of a problem, frankly, but what we see is the same firms keep getting contracts over and over and over again. And it can be a great way to diversify your revenue so that, if you go into a great recession or into a pandemic economy, and you've got a different way of selling to, for instance, to the federal government or the state or local government for that matter, that's going to help you survive. It's just a good diversification of revenue.
Marty, I have a question about that. In terms of the SBA or the federal government looking at sort of those goals, which you say are increasing, which I get, but I think also the durability of how many new businesses are actually taking advantage of that, because you can meet your goals if you just have the right number of contractors that actually fit into these categories, but you don't change them out. And so it's kind of becomes where there's no opportunity for new folks. And so do you see the federal government sort of also looking at, that goal being pointed towards new contractors to the market or new contractors to the government, rather than the same ones over and over again? We see that everywhere. It's the same group.
Yeah, well, that's an excellent point. It's a problem that I've noticed for a long time. So I think there's two answers to that. One is what they're talking about is a dramatic increase in small business goals in terms of, like, for instance, I think that the socially disadvantaged business is going from 5 to 15%, I believe. So that's going to create a lot more demand. And secondly, yeah, the government does. There are people in the government who do realize that the same people are getting the contracts, and they know it's a problem. And there are goals to basically bring in new companies. It's not something that's going to get solved right away, but I think there's a recognition that it's a problem, and that, you know, we want to broaden the number of businesses that are getting contracts, not just increase the dollar amount of contracts.
Great, thank you. I think it's actually an easier solve at the local level than the federal government. You know, so that's a way that, you know, to kind of get started on that is ask those questions about, you know, it's not just that we met our 20%, you know, of diversity, but also how much of that 20% is new to, you know, to the organization, bringing in that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that becomes a goal that people put more emphasis on, because it's important.
Mark, you want to ask your question?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I put it in the chat, but I'll ask it. So we've already kind of started the process of getting set up with the state to do contracts, but it's kind of hard to get through, and some of the stuff we're not too sure about. And I thought one of the things you had said that the SBA will help us get that set up. So is that something we could like contact the SBA directly and say we need help getting set up as, you know, like a disadvantaged business or something with, you know, federal and state contracts? Is that something the SBA can help with?
So on the federal side, we can, but there's even a better resource that you should take advantage of, and it is at the state level. And that is we have a different name in Oregon than they do everywhere else, but it's called the Gcap, Government Contract Assistance Program. So if you look up Gcap, you can just type Gcap, maybe put in contracting, you know, as a second word. You look that up, you're going to find a web page, and it's going to give you a list of people whose job it is to basically help counsel businesses that want to get into state contracting, and they can help with federal contracting as well.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, we'll check that out. Thank you so much. And then as far as the federal is concerned, you said they can help with that too, or would that be the SBA?
So we have a business opportunity specialist in my office. His name is Joe Smetak, Smetak, and he can help advise. Now, he can't, you know, we don't have the manpower. He's managing a portfolio of 35 at this point, 8A firms. So he can't be like your personal advisor. But if you have some general questions on where to go and kind of how to get started, he could definitely help there.
I posted the link to Gcap in the chat, so anybody that wants to just click that and bookmark it, check the chat.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So this 8A program is primarily for underserved minorities, but I've seen women get in and men get in. If you've got a set of circumstances that has held you back, and you think you can make a good argument that whatever your personal circumstances are have made it difficult to compete, you could potentially get in. Like, women often will, for instance, female-owned contracting businesses is a good example, because I mean, it'd be hard to say, you know, that, you know, the average woman would have a tough time in the boutique business, but the contracting business is very male dominated, and perhaps, you know, worse than that. And so you can make an argument, and I've seen women make arguments that, you know, they were discriminated against in the contracting world, and they have been in the 8A program, and I've seen that a number of times as an example. We also have something called the Hub Zone program, which is called the Historically Underutilized Business Zone. It's kind of depends on your census tract and where you're located, where your county is, and the measures to make something a hub zone have to do with the relative wealth of that census tract or county relative to the average. And so the hub zones change here and there, but you can go onto the SBA's webpage and see if wherever your business is located. Why isn't this going? Okay. This is an example of a hub zone. And that's off the hub zone map, so it's dated, but if you do SBA hub zone, you'll be able to find a map that can show you. And if you're in a hub zone, there are set asides for businesses that are in hub zones. That's pretty dated. I apologize, it's not been updated. I'm sure it's higher now though. So, you know, $2 billion of contracts going to Oregon businesses. And we're a small business state, so it's important here. We don't have a lot of big companies in Oregon. This is just it's a dated map, but it shows the concentration of where federal contracts awards were made. And you can see it's pretty heavily weighted toward the big cities.
Marty, just a quick question about the certification process. I've heard it can be a little breathtaking. Is it, how much time should you allot to the process of becoming certified?
Well, it just depends. I mean, if you're talking 8A, it can take a long time because you have to get approved. But you know, I've heard that. I have not been through. We are constantly updating our systems, trying to make it easier, which sometimes works and sometimes backfires. So it's not something, if you all of a sudden hear of a contract, whether it's state, local, or federal, that you want to bid on a month from now, and you need to get certified, not likely. But you know, you should treat it as a strategic opportunity and start working on them before, you know, you need it. And now, you know, having said that, if you're you do, and this is something that we can help with, there are ways to figure out where the government is spending its money. So before you go to all that trouble, I would recommend doing research there, because you know, if you've got a cat sitting business, it's not likely that there's a lot of government agencies that want to get cat sitters, you know, to be facetious. So check that out first. But you know, in Oregon, a lot of forestry, right? There's a lot of people that contracts that go out for people, small companies, to clean up fire areas where there's been a fire, to clear out brush, or to repair roads. So we have a lot of contracting people. We have a lot of forestry, some IT. They tend to be, you know, common 8A programs, 8A companies here. Okay, any other questions on counseling or contracting? So I think, frankly, the best thing we do is counseling and training. And we have, we fund or partially or wholly fund a network of counselors around the country. We have the Small Business Development Center Network, which is run by Lane Community College, the Oregon SBDC network. They operate under a contract with the SBA, and their funding comes from the SBA and Business Oregon, as well as some other sources. There are 20 centers around the state, and that doesn't include a global trade center. And they're actually going to open a new one in Scappoose, I believe. And so they've got counselors, they have training, they've got classes, and really just a tremendous resource out there. When I was opening my small business, I wish I'd known about these guys. I really do. And they're there to kind of help you, help form ideas. If you're great in what you do, but you don't know anything about the legal aspect or numbers, for instance, they can be helpful. There's another organization called SCORE, and most of that counseling is free, by the way. The training classes are often not free, but the individual counseling is. We have a SCORE organization that's wholly funded by the SBA. It used to be called Service Corps Retired Executives, but now they're not all retired, so we just call them SCORE. So we have chapters in Portland, Vancouver, Eugene, and then one out of Bend, which covers kind of central and southern Oregon. And again, you can be assigned a counselor who will work with you on your business plan or whatever it is that you want to try to figure out. And the good thing about these networks is your individual counselor might not know something, but you know, they've got access to other people who might have expertise. So for the gentleman that was talking about, you know, patents, it's very possible there might be somebody in the network who used to be a patent attorney and knows all about how that works. And so that's the great thing about it. You can really work with anybody in the country, you know, if you can find them, because you can do virtual counseling. And again, I would recommend that very, very highly. Everybody could use a little bit of help.
Quick,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to talk about CDIs and CDFIs, and assisting small businesses with research and development tax credits, stuff like that. Our interest has been which organizations like Mercy Corps, MISO, OWAMI, who is a CDFI and who's a CDI? We're having issues connecting with that and identifying who's who and who does what.
You know, there's so many ways those terms are used. I'm not even sure I completely understand them. You know, your CDFI can stand for Certified Development Financial Intermediary. When I think all the people you just mentioned are. I'm not sure how CDI is used. What do you think that means?
As community development institution.
Okay, so, well, in what context are you asking the question? Maybe I can help there.
And so there's a process where when emerging market technology is coming to market, companies have the ability to invest in that company, but they get tax credits for their participation. And so the CDI and the CDFI partner to take them through the process with the SBA to make sure that the investment goes to the small business and the tax credit goes to the investor.
I'm not sure that's true. You know, most of the micro lenders, and this may not really be answering the question, but most of the micro lenders are working with people, you know, wouldn't have the sophistication to be working on the kind of stuff you're talking about, probably. I'm really not sure kind of what you're seeing that, you know, makes you say that, but I don't think I know enough to kind of comment intelligently on it. Like there's nobody at, you know, there's nobody at the SBA who's working with companies to register IP or do anything like that. So I don't think I can answer your question. Probably. Sorry. In terms of the tax credits, that's not something, I understand that might be a miscommunication, but we're not directly involved in that. So we don't, you know, I don't know anything in particular about that issue. I mean, I know it exists, but other than that. Okay, so moving on to export assistance. I think I've said it already, you know, it's very important to Oregon's economy. As I mentioned, most companies that export have less than 20 employees. If you're a small company, I would not ignore that. There might be some possibilities there. There are some programs available to help you. There's export assistance centers. One's in Portland. We have special loan programs that help with export related loan needs. Even if you're a US company that's defending against foreign competition, there's a loan program that would help you with that. You can get access through the state, I forget what it stands for, but it's called a STEP grant. So if you want to go overseas and go to a trade show, you can get part of that paid for if you're approved for that. And so it's something that the SBA can help with, and it's something that's important for businesses. Just a little bit about the loan programs there. Okay, that's kind of the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
I think we got most of them from the chat. Real quick, this it's a recording that should be posted shortly on the YouTube channel for the chamber. But your slides, however out of date they may be, are they going to be available, made available for folks to either download, check out, or preview some other way?
I need to check on that. We're really not supposed to be even using this whole presentation. So let me kind of coordinate with Deanna on that one.
Okay. And then I just had kind of maybe a logistical question for, I know how we have answered this in the past, at least in terms of like a, 7A or 504 loan, but for somebody looking to get started on this, in some cases with, with lending that includes a bank, we weren't even sure when we wanted to start the process for ourselves, where to even start to ask the questions. Do we go to the SBA first? Do we go to a chamber first? Do we go to a bank first and hope that they work with the SBA to know about? And in some cases, if you work with a smaller financial institution or a small independent bank, a credit union who doesn't work, or do large lending in that sense, if they don't know the answer, you may not know that such a program exists because your institution doesn't work with it. So your answer might be, no, there isn't anything. When if you had asked the SBDC or chamber or something, you might have gotten a different answer. So where's the best place for somebody to start by asking questions for, to lead it down the correct path?
Right. It's a good point you bring up. So if you want to access SBA lending, the best place to do is to start with different lending institutions. And when you talk to them, prompt them, does this make sense as an SBA loan? And it's the truth is that many institutions that have strong SBA departments, the line bankers may not even know that they do. So you want to prompt them, and they're supposed to tell you whether you need an SBA guarantee or not. But if somebody says no to you, then you can ask them, hey, have you checked with the SBA people? Does this make sense for them? And if they say, what are you talking about? Then you need to keep pressing. Well, do you have an SBA team, and can I get the number of somebody there? And just sort of keep in mind that not everybody you talk to may be aware, as you said, Jeremy, of all the programs there.
Marty?
Yes.
That's how I kind of met Sean Harry. Back in the days, I used to work for a company, and we're a mortgage lender, and that's what we did is we specialized with the SBA, and we go to all the banks, find out what they did, get all the programs so we could be a resource for those small businesses. And somebody comes and says, I need to finance inventory. You say, okay, well, here's the 3 banks that do this. Here, we can set you up your package. And sometimes the SBA would pay our fee. Sometimes, we charge the client, but we'd help them, put the package together and get it through that process.
Yeah. There's also, the SBDC network has a great team. It's called the Capital Access Team, which is led by Noah Brockman. And they specialize in taking on projects to help people get capital. And they know about lots of capital sources besides just SBA lending. They have their fingers on the pulse of a lot of different types of capital. And I also want to say to the gentleman who was asking the questions about patents and things like that, you're welcome to give me a call, and if you want to talk about this in more detail. And my number is 503-388-2877.
Marty, this has been great. Thank you so much. I know when you and I talked, you're like, oh, I don't have very much information, probably 30 minutes. And I'm like, I knew better than that. Wealth of information. SBA is extremely important to our small business network, and really appreciate bringing forward the opportunities as well for folks to think about their business in a different way. I know so many people, small businesses that I talk to, they're like, oh, I don't want a loan. I don't want to owe money. But oftentimes that's how you get to the next level, and doing it the right way and the smart way is what the SBA is here for, is to help folks contemplate that next level in their business.
Thank you all. I was very, very happy to do this. Thanks for inviting me. And if anybody has any questions, just give me a ring.
And you got questions too from us.
Yes, very nice.
Well, and again, I would just go back to, telling folks to sign up for the SBA regular emails that come out regarding all sorts of webinars that you're putting on. Just a ton of information and opportunity to learn different things and learn about different topics. Excellent. Jeremy, you want to close us?
Yeah. bring down the house, Deanna. Thank you again to Marty for the great presentation. Thanks to Deanna and the Chamber, as always, for putting this stuff on. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, I believe. Same time, same place. Sign up for that one. We'll be going over some ever-changing situations in small businesses in the COVID era. So tune in 2 weeks, and we'll see you then. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you on the YouTubes as well. When this gets posted, you can review some of the good information and find some more links, or review anything that you saw that you needed to process one more time. Watch it again. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Bye-bye.